not in your vocabulary? Are you willing to outwork everyone in your next contest but need the right guidance? Drop those bad contest prep strategies and let New York Muscle Radio guide you on your journey to the stage. Whether it's your first show or you're going for that pro card, get a leg up on the competition with individual customized contest prep strategies. Visit NewYorkMuscleRadio.com and click on that coaching tab to get started.
New York's very own muscle building coaches, Anthony Bevilacqua and Pete Kacharian, proudly present to you New York Muscle Radio.
What's up, guys? New York Muscle Radio, episode number 110. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, alongside my co-host, Big Pete Kacharian. If you're a new listener, welcome to the New York Muscle Radio podcast, where we give out all that good information without all that fluff. Today's podcast is going to be on groundbreaking fitness information revealed. So I'm going to reveal to you some new groundbreaking information that I found out that I'm going to share with you guys today. I don't want to give too much away in the title, but what's up there, big guy? It's been a while.
It has been a while, and this one's going to be fun because I'm actually almost in spectator mode on this one because you're going to be revealing all this information, and I'm going to be hearing it for the first time, so I'm going to have plenty of questions for you.
Yeah, it's going to be like I'm being interviewed today on Pete's podcast.
It's always Pete's podcast. You know that.
Man, I haven't seen you. I haven't spoke to you. We haven't put out a podcast in a while. It's almost like we went on a little hiatus there.
I know it's been about a week, but it feels a lot longer than that, actually. So I got a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about because we haven't even had a chance to just speak and catch up on everything that's been going on. So, you know, definitely forget everybody else listening to this. I actually want to just talk to you, but we could record it for everybody who wants to listen in.
Oh, you missed me.
Yeah, man. It's been too long.
All right, guys. Well, just to let you guys know, I did actually over the weekend. Well, it was actually longer than the weekend. I left on Thursday. Today's Wednesday, and I got back on Tuesday. I went to Lane Norton's VIP camp that he does every year, and I made the investment in it, and it was definitely money well spent, and I learned so much. Actually, you know, going into this, I didn't think I was going to learn as much as I did. I was like, you know, I got this down packed. I just want to see what goes on. But it really, really was an eye-opening experience. I really did learn a lot more than I thought I was gonna. So I'm just super excited to kind of talk to you about that. I mean, like, I'm holding everything in right now so bad. Like, I want to tell you 100 different things, but because I want to make this like I'm having a conversation with you on the podcast as I reveal these things, it's so hard to contain myself here. So let's move away from that right now.
I don't give too much away here. Yeah, we still got more to talk about first.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about because we went, like I said, we took a little bit of a break here, but what's first on the agenda today?
First on the agenda, I think the most recent thing is your powerlifting meet. We didn't discuss what happened with it yet. I think the last podcast that we even mentioned that it was right before the meet. I think you mentioned on the podcast that you still weren't even sure if you were gonna compete. Might have been a couple days before.
That's right, man. Man, every day is like blending in. Time goes by so fast. Yes. You know, when you're a kid, you know, you're rushing to, I can't wait to be 21. I can't wait to be 21. And then once you're 21, you just want time to stop. Like right now, I'm 29, but I don't want the time to move anymore, man. And it's just flying by. Holy crap.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm going to be 27 next month, and I'm still trying to hold on to 25.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Next month. That's right. September what? When's your birthday? September what?
3rd.
Oh, wow.
September 3rd.
So less than a month.
It's good and it's bad because it usually hurricanes on my birthday, and that usually it usually means it's the end of the summer. So that's usually what happens.
It hurricanes?
It always hurricanes. Like, I'll have a barbecue, and then all of a sudden everything in the backyard will just get blown down. All right, guys, let's go inside.
Yeah. Oh, man. We had a barbecue for your birthday last year.
It was nice last year. The weather held up. We cooked turkey hot dogs, and what do we have? Chicken hot dogs, too?
Yeah. This is the only kid that I know that has, instead of having a real barbecue with propane or you know, charcoal, he's got the Foreman grill barbecue. It plugs in. The thing's electric.
Did
you get a real barbecue yet?
No, I didn't actually. It's you know, the little electric barbecue is good for like 2 people, but when you have a bunch of people, it's not a good idea. I tried making it work. I mean, we ate off of it last year, but you know, if we do a barbecue this year, we got to get a real grill out there.
It's funny because I used to have that thing, and you could use that thing inside.
Yeah.
And it's actually good, like, inside, you know, because it actually does taste a little bit like barbecue. So, and it's definitely a lot more convenient than cooking on the stovetop.
Yeah, definitely
Although
more
I don't know,
convenient,
because then you
yeah.
got to clean that big ass thing.
Yeah, well, you have to clean the pan either way. So after you grill with a pan, you got to clean the bottom of that. So it's almost the same, to be honest with you. But it tastes more like it's on an actual grill than on the stove. So,
Man, we got really off topic there, but we were talking about my powerlifting, and ended up talking about the barbecue.
Today is basically an all fluff episode, I think.
Yeah, because I haven't seen or spoke to you at all. So I mean, I text you a little bit, but it's not the same. I have so much information that I just want to spew out to you. So anyway, guys, yeah, in the last podcast, I was talking about my meet and possibly not doing it because I was having back pain or whatever, hip pain, and I ended up doing it. It felt good. And why don't you talk about it, because you were back there with me. You were the only person who knew about it. No one else knew. I didn't tell anybody else because, again, I didn't know if I was making it to the meet. So I was like, I'm not going to even make this public. I'm just going to tell him, and I'm going to have him back there with me. And go ahead.
Yeah, so Anthony basically, every meet he competes in, he has a nice entourage of people cheering for him. He has a whole crew of people that go. I'm at all his meets. But this one was very different because he said, I don't want anybody showing up. I just want you there to help me backstage because of the injury, you weren't really sure if you were going to perform at 100% or even if you were going to be able to perform at all.
Yeah, I was going to try to get you to jump in there for me if I needed to.
I would have done a couple squats for you, but your numbers probably would have still been lower if I had me do it than you do it injured. But anyway, so we showed up, just me and you. It was another more local powerlifting meet at one of those CrossFit gyms. So again, the temperature was extremely high in there. Everyone was just dripping sweat, which I don't know, in your case might have been better or worse considering you had the injury. It definitely helped you stay warm.
Yeah, but meanwhile, it makes you dehydrated, so it's like a catch-22.
It's true. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, the conditions are never really good as far as most of the powerlifting meets I've been to. But so anyway, so you went in, you did your typical thing, showed up, no belt, with an injury, by the way. And I
have so much to tell you about that too. But go ahead.
I would love to hear about that. But basically just went in.
Remind me to bring that up to you later on because I'm definitely going to forget. I marked it a little bit down here, but go ahead.
So, your goal kind of for the day, at least from what you told me, was, listen, I'm just going to go and do what I could do, try not to kill myself and see what I can put up for the day, So, as far as your warm-ups and everything went, everything seemed to be pretty smooth, although I don't think you had it mentally in your head that you were going to be at 100%. So the goal was just, okay, let's see what I could do. Normally you have a pretty good game plan of what you're going to open with, what you're going to finish with on your third attempt. And we kind of went in with the mindset, okay, let's just see what we could do. Let's open, see where we go from there. And
I hate that, by the way. I have to have a plan. If I don't have a plan, I'm done.
For you, that was very, very out of the ordinary. But I think during, considering the circumstance, I think that's exactly what needed to be done. And, do you know exactly what you opened with? I don't even remember. I remember what you finished with.
I actually have it written down. Go ahead, tell the rest of the story, and I'll pull that up.
Yeah, well, so first of all, I want to just say that I told you before the meet that whatever you put, you were very you're very hesitant to take credit for what you were going to do, and I said, remember going into this that you're injured, so regardless of what you do, you have to take that into account. And the first thing you did was, obviously the squats are the first lift. You put up over 500 pounds on the squat with no belt on and an injury. And
I was only 10 pounds off from my best.
Yes, and you were very disappointed with that. Which is how you guys know, listening, how crazy he is, because like I said, no belt and an injury, squatted 500 pounds in a meet, and he's disappointed.
508.
508, yes. And only 10 pounds off of your best?
Yeah, exactly 10.
With an injury. And that was that the best squat in your weight class?
Yeah.
It was the highest squat in your weight class with an injury, no belt. Okay, let's just leave that there first of all. And he's disappointed, or he was disappointed. So I was really happy with that because I said, listen, if the guy could even squat 400 pounds, because considering you were injured and you were training with what, 3?
Yeah, so I got injured about 8 weeks before this meet. Well, I think it was leading up to it. There's a lot of things that I think played into this injury, quote unquote, and I was squatting one day with 440 and I just couldn't do it, man. It was just too painful. And I've been forcing it through. It was my fault for forcing it so much. and I couldn't do it after. I was like, I gotta back down. So I took 4 weeks off of squatting, and then I took another, I guess, 4 or 5 weeks to kind of build back up. And the heaviest I squatted during that last 8 weeks was like 325.
Yeah. And then he went in the meet and squatted over 500.
High bar.
Yeah. And I
squat low bar.
I have to mention too that I think it was maybe on your second attempt I noticed you always bury your squats at the meets because I know you don't want to get called for depth. But you were like, when I say buried them, like you took it like a step further at this meet for some reason. And on the second attempt, I was saying to myself, I don't want to tell him, I don't want to tell him don't squat as deep because I know you, it'll throw you off. You'll be better off. No, just keep squatting. But your 508 was like you buried it. It was like it was unnecessarily deep, in my opinion.
That's like the exclamation point there.
Yeah. So, I don't think the outcome could have been any better considering the circumstances for the squat. So that was really good. Like I said, it put you on the board. You were the highest squat in your weight class. I think there was only one person in the whole meet who squatted more than you, and he was in the next weight class?
Two.
Yeah, 2 weight classes up, and he was a big guy. So yeah, the squats went really well, and then the bench came around, and then it was a little bit interesting what happened with the bench because your injury didn't affect you on any bench movements, correct?
No, so I don't know. I don't even know what happened. I can't even chalk up. I mean, actually, I figured this out at the camp, so I haven't spoke to you, so I guess I could explain to you here. So, but this kind of leads into today. I don't want to give too much away, but anyway.
All right, so don't give that part away. Do you want to just talk about what happened at the meet?
Yeah. Okay, so then at the meet, pretty much what ends up happening is that my bench training never stopped, never stalled. I didn't take off bench. I was on point. I was doing the same exact lifts as the last meet. The last meet, I hit 375, 74, whatever, at my last meet. And I was on point. I said, I'm going to slam 380, 390 this meet for sure. I hit my opener, which was 344. And would you say that was easy?
The opener was easy, yeah.
Okay, then I put on like 350 something or whatever on the second attempt, something like that, 355. And I don't know what happened. I just couldn't get it. I couldn't lock it out. And I had 2 failed attempts on bench from there on. I don't know what happened. And
that was probably what you were most disappointed with out of the whole meet, right?
Yeah, because that was the one thing that I was like, at least I'll break a PR there.
Right. And, just from my observation being there, I really think that, you were, afterwards, the conversation me and you had was you were overthinking everything. Okay, how did I get weaker? How did I get weaker? How did I not put up those numbers? And in my opinion, like I said, based on the first lift, you looked like you were strong enough to get that on your second lift. But I think it was just a technical issue that got you caught midpoint on the lift. And what happens is, for anybody who knows, when you try and grind out a max and you can't get it and that bar starts to come back down, your nervous system and your muscles are basically going to be fried. It's almost impossible. I mean, I haven't been around powerlifting meets too much, but even if you just do this in training, when you take a set to failure, it's almost impossible to duplicate it even a few minutes later. So I think what happened was it was more of a technical issue on the lift, and you missed it and couldn't lock it out, and it took so much out of you that you couldn't make it on the third attempt, unfortunately. So I really think it was just more of a technical issue, And I know.
Yeah, I had the pin set a little lower this meet for whatever reason, so it was almost like I was half repping it once I pulled it off the rack. So I think that's what messed me up too. But whatever, you can't make excuses. And then I went into deadlift, and this was the one I knew was going to be significantly down, and it was. I was pulling sumo before that, and I think that sumo was the cause of all my my injuries there, because my hips just don't open in that position, and I think that's where everything, my hips started flaring up my back and my quadratus lumborum, which I think is the main issue here, but this is not an anatomy podcast, so we won't even discuss that. But I switched over back to conventional deadlifts, and I think I pulled like 520, something like that, 518 at the meet. So I finally went 3 for 3 on deadlifts, which I'm happy about, but I pulled 50 pounds less. But needless to say, my next meet, I'm going to crush all those numbers. I'll probably be back to where I was because I'm feeling good. And, yeah. But that was the meet. I ended up... go ahead. You were telling the story so well.
Yeah. Well, and this was probably the coolest part about it because, you ended up just missing first place by, I believe it was 10 pounds. Is that what it was?
Yeah,
on your total. So 5 kilos or 10 pounds on the total. So had you just made your bench, even with the significant drop off on the deadlift and the drop off on the squat. If you had just, nailed that bench, you still would have been good enough for first place, even not hitting your best numbers. So that's definitely disappointing. I could understand where you're coming from with that, but like I said, given the circumstances, you gotta just look at it like, all right, I went into it injured and I still took second.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm aiming for. I want to be the best me I can be. I remember I've always said this. I've always tell everyone this, all clients included. When you compete, you're only competing against yourself. That's pretty much all you're competing against. And yes, I overcame adversity because I really wanted to quit and I pushed myself and whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm still not happy with the performance that I had because I didn't beat myself in any sense of the word. Maybe I did beat myself in the sense that I didn't quit, but overall my numbers didn't improve. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. If you want to be a good powerlifter, it's all about those numbers. So my numbers are down, my performance is down. So I just got to bring them back up. I mean, granted, yes, I went through an injury, but we don't make excuses. No, winners don't make excuses.
I'm willing to bet that when you are 100% healthy, your numbers are they're gonna fly past where they were, considering that you put those numbers up when you were injured. So I think when you're 100% healthy, you're gonna see some new PRs across the board.
From your mouth, my friend, to God's ears. That's all I have to say. As long as I stay healthy, and that's it. That'll be the end of that. But all right, let's move on, man. We're a little over time with my powerlifting meet, but thank you for the story there, and
I think it was a cool event that most people probably want to hear a little bit about. So it was definitely a fun day, man. It was long and, as usual, typical powerlifting meet, but always something exciting happening,
Yeah, and also I forgot we have to give a shout out to Stephalophagus85 on Instagram. She spotted me at the meet. She actually took a picture of me deadlifting and tagged me in a post on Instagram, and she said it was a pleasure watching Anthony from New York Muscle Radio deadlift at this meet. And I thought that was so cool. And I actually messaged her. I said, you should have came out to me and said hello, bye-bye. I would have been blown away if someone would have did that. Right. Especially, me and you just talk on this thing, and we don't think we have the audience that we do, So to see that was like really, really surreal.
What's her name? Stephalophagus?
Yeah, Stephalophagus, like Snuffleupagus.
Shout out to Stephalophagus. Yeah. She a powerlifter also? Was she competing?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, I would assume if she was at a meet, so I guess.
Yeah.
She wasn't competing that day.
Okay.
So, but shout out to her. That was really cool. But yeah, let's move on to the shout outs portion. But we're a little backed up here, so we gotta get these going here. So, guys, again, if you guys want to shout out, head on over to facebook.com/New York Muscle Radio. Like our page, and we'll shout you out. You could also find us on Instagram. I'm at AB Fitness, and Pete's at Jacked Fitness, JAKKED Fitness, and we'll give you a shout out on the podcast. All right, so first shout out is to Shane Hunter, Carmen Andrade, Logan Duckett, Owen Forrest Owen. Oh, Owain. I'm sorry, Owain Forrest Owen.
I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah. Caesar Areen, butcher everybody's names here on New York Muscle Radio. Jeremy Casey Daniels, Stephanie Allen, Luke Filippi, Gordon Parsons. He actually tagged us in a post saying that he listens to us while he trains. It was like someone put up a meme that says, what do you listen to when you work out? He tagged us in it. So shout out to him. And another shout out to Logan Duckett. I gave him one already, but he actually wrote us a... come on, my phone is not cooperating. He actually messaged us on Facebook, and he wrote, "Hey guys, I just found the podcast last week and love it. I was needing help with demotivating myself and give you guys the credit to my newfound motivation. I have been binge listening to your older podcasts while at work. I love the show. I don't know what I'll do after I listen to all the shows. I guess I'll just have to start back over from the top. Keep up the good work. I was also going to see if you guys tried getting on CT Fletcher or Mike Rashid on your show. Those guys are crazy. I'd love to hear a shout out on a future podcast." So there's your shout out, big guy, and thank you for finding us. And we appreciate all of our listeners. And if you make sure you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, because that really, really helps us. All right, guys. So let's move on to the listener question of the day. These are always wonderful.
I don't even know what the listener question is today.
Shocked.
This should be an interesting one.
So again, if you guys have a question you want us to answer, you could submit it directly on our website, newyorkmuscleradio.com/listener-question. And today's question is from Timothy Christ. He says, "I've been listening to you guys for about 6 months now, and you guys always put on a great show. My question is, I'm an older bodybuilder. What is your take on whether an older bodybuilder can add new muscle? If it matters, I'm 60 years old and have won the Masters over 50, Mr. Cincinnati. Well, that's awesome. That's an awesome accomplishment. So congratulations on winning that. As far as adding new muscle goes, at your age, I mean, I guess it depends.
Yes,
it depends.
it does
If you're a
depend.
beginner,
Right.
I don't think he is a beginner because based on he competed before, so I don't know. And a Masters over 50, and he's 60, so he's obviously been competing for a couple years. But if you were a beginner and you actually started, I wouldn't say that you can't gain muscle. It's just not going to be as much as if you were in your 20s starting. You know, I hate when people put a limit to things. I hate when people say, "Oh no, you can't gain any muscle." You know, after this age, you know, the muscle building process stops. Listen, even if you gain 1 pound, but you look better and you get yourself leaner in the process, you overall, who cares? Doesn't matter if you put on 10 pounds or 1 pound. As long as you look better and you feel better about yourself, that's all that matters. I mean, I know that sounds kind of hippie-ish answer, but
Yeah, but no. The truth is, especially like you said, if you're a beginner and you haven't touched a weight before, if you're getting into this, you know, later in life, just because you're older doesn't mean that you're not going to make progress, you know, or that you're going to make very slow progress. Yeah, I mean, if you started doing this when you were younger, the results would come a lot faster and a lot easier. You know, you're going to have to work a little harder. You're going to have to work a little smarter as you get older. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. You know, if you've been working out your whole life and you're into your later years, it's definitely going to be harder to gain new muscle just because you've been doing it so long. Your body has grown. You know, you've gotten stronger, you've gotten bigger through weight training. And as we all know, the more advanced you get, the longer you train, the harder it is in general. So in that regard, it's definitely going to be tougher. But, you know, just based on age, it's not impossible to add muscle once you pass a certain limit, you know, a certain age limit. So don't let age be that, you know, be restricting in what you're, you know, what you see for yourself.
yeah. Also, what I'm going to say is, as you age, it obviously gets harder to put on muscle. It's not going to be as easy as when you were 20, like we said. So in that sense, you really want to make sure that your nutrition is on point and optimal, because your nutrition is going to be your driver to tell your body to build new muscle. So make sure you pick up a copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code, which is our signature ebook, which will show you everything that you need to know about dieting, building muscle, and it's all cut down in a nice, condensed, quick, easy read book so you could figure all this out and make sure that you're in the more optimal range to build muscle at your age. You know, because if you're not eating enough,
Right.
you're not going to build muscle. If you're not eating enough protein, you're not going to maintain muscle. You know, if you're dieting and you're losing more muscle than you've gained, you know, then you're in a problem spot there. So, again, it's kind of a tough question without a lot more background information,
Right.
but I think we answered it to the best of our ability.
It's
What do you
very,
think?
very individualistic, you know, and the only thing I would add to that is that, you know, even if you know how to eat to build muscle during your younger years, as you get older, your metabolism is going to change, so your diet's going to have to change too. So the way you did it when you're younger is not necessarily going to be the best way to do it as you get older. You know, like
That's true, too.
somebody like Anthony, you know, he's on a gaining phase, eating over 550 grams of carbohydrates, something 600 grams of
not
carbohydrates. As you get older, that's definitely not the best way to go about it, but that's what he's doing right now. That works for him. So, you know, as you get older, things are going to change. When he gets older, which I'm sure he's still going to be trying to build muscle as he gets older, he's not going to be taking the 600 gram of carb route.
Listen, I just hope I don't live to be 100 and be crippled. You know, and just like not be there. You know, I'd rather die at 85, but like, you know, just like that, instead of living to be 100 and not being there. You know.
Yeah, I guess it depends. I
Like,
really
think about
I don't
it.
know.
Let's just say like at 85, you just lost everything. Like that's it. Like you didn't remember. You just became like a burden on everybody. Would you want to be around? That's not fun. It's different if you're 100 and you're you know, capable.
Yeah,
we had a guy when we worked at a gym together. He was like 94 and he would still go to the gym and he still had like all his sense.
He was there like 3 times a day too, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who's 94, can't even get out of bed. You know, that's pointless.
Well, that's why you got to change your approach as you start to get older. Then you got to switch to more longevity type training and nutrition. You know.
Yeah. Well, listen. While you were chatting away over there answering the listener question of the day, I happened to click on Facebook there and I saw your arm picture.
Yes.
trying to throw one up to make sure you think you're ahead of me there?
I think we got to take a comparison picture now that your measurements are about the same as mine, right?
I know. I haven't measured them in a little bit. I have to measure them.
I haven't measured mine either, but my arm training is actually not a focus of mine right now. I'm experimenting with a lot different training methods lately, and I put something together that I'm running for myself. It's totally an experiment at this point, but arm training is definitely still in there. I can't take arm training out of my workouts. I feel like I'm just skipping out on everything. To me, that would be like skipping legs, you know?
Oh God. But we keep getting messages, man, when we're going to release this arm program. We really got to finish this.
Yes.
We got to wrap this up, man.
Yes, this is one thing that we've actually been moving very slow on, but
both of us. This is both of our fault.
Yes, definitely. It's been a group effort.
And you know what it is? It just came at an impromptu time. You know, we mentioned it on the podcast because it happened. My 12 weeks was over, and then just got super busy in that time, and I knew that I had the meet coming up, so I knew I wouldn't have extra time, and then I knew I was going to Lane's VIP camp, so I didn't have enough time to. I guess it was my fault, and I shouldn't have said anything as early as I did, but I was so excited for my results, I had to say it. So we're leaving all these people, and we're leaving them hanging about how to gain 1 inch to your arms in 12 weeks.
Well, the good news is we're pretty much almost done with it. I know we said this on maybe 5 podcasts ago, but we actually we've made improvements since then. So we're almost done with it. We don't like to just put anything out. We don't like to just throw junk out at you guys. So we kind of hyped it up a little bit, and it's definitely going to live up to the hype. That's for sure. So we want to make sure we put it out right for you guys.
Yeah, the goal is to be able to send this to our graphic designer, Mel Ferrito, so he can make it look pretty for us within the next week or so. So, Mel, if you're listening to this, man, reach out to us so we could send this to you and get this program going. See, Mel's lucky. He gets the insider on everything.
Yeah. And if any of our stuff looks pretty, it's all Mel's. That's all credit given to Mel. We just put the information in there.
Yeah, he just makes it look... He makes it look nice and not like shit, so you guys don't end up getting just a Word document with a title that says New York Muscle Radio.
Hey man, if we didn't have him, that's what the listeners might get.
Yeah, remember when you tried to made the original cover?
Yeah, so funny story. There's a first edition of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code, and it was all done by myself. And looking at it, I had never really, I'm not a graphic designer, but I have enough knowledge to kind of put it together in a very, amateurish way. And, we put out the first edition and,
Wait, hold on, back up. The first edition, the only thing that changed between the first edition and the second edition was the pictures and the way it looked. It had, the content, we didn't change that.
The content did not change, but, you would think it was 2 different books just if you judged it by its cover, So
don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah,
Peter.
we had Mel give it a facelift and much more happy with that one.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with the uncovered, groundbreaking fitness information revealed.
What's up, New York Muscle Radio listeners? It's your co-host, Big Pete Kacharian, and I'm glad you're all listening. Put down the tilapia and asparagus. Learn how to get bigger, stronger, and leaner eating what you want. Pick up a copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. But for now, let's get to the show.
Hey guys, it's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, and I just wanted to announce that my brand new personal training facility is now open. I'm currently taking on new clients in the Long Island, New York area. If you're interested in working with the best personal trainer in the business, head on over to abfitnesstrainer.com and sign up for your free consultation. Then you can understand why bodybuilding.com has named me Personal Trainer of the Month. All right, guys, we're back. New York Muscle Radio. Episode number 110, groundbreaking fitness information revealed. So again, in the intro, I'm basically going to have a conversation with my co-host here and fill him in on everything that I learned at Lane Norton's VIP camp. Now, this camp was very expensive. It was not cheap, big guy. It was pretty pricey, but it was definitely worth it. When I first went in there, I kind of went in a little cocky, I was debating on doing it from the beginning because I was like, I kind of feel like I know everything, Right. And not to sound that in a cocky way, but it's like, how much more stuff can that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would probably go into it feeling the same way and almost not wanting to learn more, because sometimes, especially when you have things figured out already, sometimes learning more, it's information overload at that point, and then it doesn't help you beyond that. If you know how to get the job done, learning more, it can become a negative. So it depends, though. I mean, there's definitely always things you can learn.
But overall, I had a really good time. I flew out on a Thursday, got there, met everyone. I went into this knowing no one. I didn't think anyone was going to be there. I know we interviewed a couple guys on the podcast. Like we had on Jason Lowry. That's what we were calling him. But he was way back in episode 35. So again, if you guys want to listen to that podcast, he talks about how he created My Macros Plus. He was actually pretty famous down there, I got to say. All of Lane's people knew who he was. So they were all like taking pictures. I'm like, look, and they were putting him on a Snapchat. Like, look, the My Macros guy. I'm like, I interviewed him when I was famous, before he got big. And actually, funny enough, when we went to dinner, me and him actually got really close. So I hung out with him pretty much the whole weekend. We worked out together, whatever. He's a really, really good guy. And at dinner, we were drinking, and I told some new guy, whatever. Someone sat at the table with us that wasn't part of the whole group. Someone's like boyfriend, one of the girls. And he's like, hey, you created My Macros Plus, right? To Jason. I'm like, yeah, that's my partner. So secretly, Jason actually gave away 50% of his company to me. So yeah, I own half of My Macros Plus right now. So if he's listening, he knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, so it was fun. I didn't know anyone. So I was like, going into this, I'm like, I'm not going to know anyone. It's going to be so awkward. When you put in those situations where you don't know anyone? Yeah,
it's like a first day of school for you guys. Did you have have group orientation? Did you play like the ball game with like the when you throw the beach ball around?
Dude, actually, you know what? Going in, like flying down there, I'm like, oh man, they're probably going to make us stand up and say 5 sentences about yourself. I really thought that was going to happen. Thank God that didn't happen, because I hate that. I hate that.
I feel like that's not really a good way to get people to know each other.
It's definitely not. But I fucking hate that. You know exactly what I'm talking about too. Like, say 5 things about yourself, and you're like, oh hi, I'm Peter Kacharian. I'm an asshole. I have big arms.
I mean, if you really want to get to know me, I would have to say that stuff, and I don't think I would say that during the 5 things of of myself. I would probably pick something else.
Yeah, but so got down there, met everyone, and it was so cool, man. Like it was all day. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday was literally almost all day. It was, I believe Friday we went to the gym first. Yeah, we did. We went to the gym first. They did like a squat session, so you got to work out with all the pros. I pretty much worked out with Lane all weekend. And on the last day that we were there, it was like a bench day, and then we did like a upper body. I pretty much just worked out with Lane. Just me and him worked out. Him, and Jason worked out. We did like bench. And then Jason broke off, and me and Lane worked out the entire day. So I was joking with everyone there, because they're like, you're working out with a world champion, right? I'm like, yeah, he also called me big guy. And then at the end, he goes, that was a good workout, coach. And he said it like multiple times. I'm like, hey, you see that? Lane Norton called me coach.
Well, now I got to ask the question, who benched more? Considering you're both injured.
Actually, I benched the most out of all of us. There, but no one was maxing. We were just freaking around for bench. Lane and him did like 275 for 8 on bench, and then I was just doing 305 for sets of like 3 or 4.
So you guys weren't actually training. You were more just lifting for fun.
Yeah, well, basically what happened was there was one day when it was a squat technique, and they went over everything that has to do with squats. Me and Lane lifted the same there. He's also injured, so we just kept it the same there. Jason did a little more than us. I think he did like 440 or whatever he did, because he's not injured. Actually, he is. He said he hurt his hip, but he's a lot more off than I am as far as that goes. So he did that. They go over squats. And basically, there's so many experts there that go around and check your form. Mike Zordos was there. Matt and Susie from SSPT, they were there. Awesome people. So you're literally doing all this with the top guys in the industry. So it was really cool to have them. They all come around and they look at your form and stuff. So I really my goal was to fix my deadlift. That was my main goal, why I kind of went. And I was like, because the deadlift is something that I've always struggled with as far as in making improvements go. And I always feel like my form is always off with deadlifts. So that's what I was really looking for there. And, sometimes it's always good to get a second eye. I'm always asking you, and you tell me my form is good. And not that I don't trust your opinion, but these are the top guys in the world. Right. So you never know what you could pick up. I'm not naive to think that I know everything, you know?
Yeah. So before we go further, then did you learn anything from your deadlift technique that you were doing incorrectly, or something that you picked up that maybe
Yes.
helped you? So
Yes,
yeah,
a lot. But
I want to hear about that.
I have that all covered down more.
Oh, so we can't break the structure. I don't know what the structure of this podcast
I mean,
is.
we could. All right. So yeah, I guess I'll break it, but I just don't want to miss anything. All right. So, yeah, you want to know about deadlift, right? All right. So actually, I got a really good tip on bench. So now, bench press is one of those exercises that your form is either good or it's bad. And I think I have relatively good bench press, but the problem is everybody's leverages and levers of their body, limb length, everything is different. So sometimes you can be doing something correct on paper, but when performing it, it doesn't come out right.
Yeah.
So with me, my bench press always seems to stall from my chest to about, I would say, like 4 inches off my chest. 4 or 5 inches off my chest is when it's the hardest for me. So I pulled over Susie from SSBT. Susie is, I have to give her background information. I should have written a little bio about her here because I'm not sure of all her accolades off my head, but she's like the strongest woman powerlifter in the world. She's won multiple records in powerlifting. I think she weighs, like, at contest, I want to say around 100 and something pounds, and she squats well over 340.
Yeah, that's
Insane.
crazy.
And she's won so many world records, and you guys can look it up. I don't have this on. I've actually messaged Susie because I want her to come on the podcast because she was awesome. And I pulled her over, so it's funny because I'm 5'11", almost 6 foot, and she's like 5'1". So she comes over. I'm like, listen, I want you to watch my bench press because I'm not sure if my shoulders are weak. Because usually when someone's weak off the chest, to the midpoint of the motion of a bench press, they usually have weak shoulders. So I performed the bench press for her. This was after I did all my sets or whatever. So I performed it for her, and she said it's good. Do it again. So I dropped the weight a little bit, did it again, and I was touching. Actually, what the main key here was I was touching just a drop lower, and because I was touching a drop low, so I was touching like my top ab. Because I was touching a drop lower, on paper that's correct. That's where you're supposed to be touching, around that area. She made me bring it up about 2 inches. And I can't even believe how much more fluent my bench press is. It was basically like I was pausing, and then I would push up and then back toward me.
Right, I got you. Yeah. Well, you also use a very wide grip. Did she say anything about how wide your grip length
that's
was?
Fine. She said everything is fine. She said on paper your bench press is perfect. She said the only thing is it doesn't fit your body because you're bringing it down so low. You have to push straight up and then back toward you. She said, so if you bring the bar a little bit closer to you, you're going to be pushing more. But I can't believe how instantly that fixed it. It's much more fluent now. It was crazy. One little cue like that. And like I said, on paper, my bench press was fine. So
yeah, it's little techniques depending, like you said, on everyone's body structure. It's going to be completely different. So she probably saw the way the bar was moving and probably noticed that you're pushing it back from the start of the movement. So just moving it 2 inches up, I think probably eliminated that. It's kind of like moving yourself in a different position on the deadlift to pull the slack out of the bar.
Yeah. So that was crazy. That was like, and just something so stupid like that. It's like, wow, that was mind blowing. Like that made the whole, like not just that alone, but that was like one of the things I was like, wow, that was like my big takeaway from here because I know my bench press is going to improve so much from here on out just because of that little cue. Because I've benched you before. I always feel like I'm so weak out of the bottom, and then once I get past that sticking point, boom, it flies up.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have the same issue with the bench too, and I've been benching a lot more frequently lately, and I've noticed that for me, I'm having that trouble too, especially when I do a wide grip bench. My close grip, I never really have too much trouble with, but my wide grip, it's always just getting it out of the bottom movement. So I wonder if I'm doing something similar. I don't train with as wide of a grip as you do though. So and we have we're almost the same height, but we have totally different limb lengths and everything like that. So definitely
with your hands in closer, if my hands were in closer, touching my top abs would be perfect.
Right.
I'd be in the right position. And then watching Lane, one thing I'm going to go back to watching Lane lift, exactly how he comes off of on a bodybuilding.com, the way he lifts is exactly what happens in real life. It's funny. So, because then when I ended up working out with just me and him, we did like all a typical bodybuilding workout, and I was pushing him like, let's do this, let's do that. It was funny. So it was cool to actually get to see. I saw the mad stomp in person,
Yeah.
And it was cool to squat with him. He had when we did squats, he had on I forget, not a tendon unit, but it was one of those things that like Velcro to the bar, and it measured the speed of the bar. So funny enough, when we were doing it, he left it on there for me and Jason to use. So when he was doing it, he was pushing the bar up at like, I think it was like 0.29 or something like that. When me and Jason would push it, would squat, it'd be like 0.6, 0.5. So we were moving the bar. Again, it was roughly around the same weight. So we were moving the bar just as fast as him. He was just moving the bar a little bit slower. So I wonder if that makes a difference as far as like muscle size goes. Because he has more overall strength, obviously. I mean, he has a world record squat. So I don't know if he's just a slow squatter. You know, so it was just cool. Like, you know, we were trying to figure out what that meant.
Right. So he's obviously stronger, but you guys were moving the lighter weights at pretty much the same speed.
Yeah, the same weight. We all pretty much squatted around the same weight. So he moved it half the speed that we moved it, but overall he's able to move more weight.
Right. I think that probably has something to do with the differences between your ability to lift a max load versus your, you know, what you could do for like an 8-rep max or a 12-rep max, you know, because some people, you know, you might have two people and one of them could do more reps with, 225, but the other one could max a lot higher, you know? So, you know, your strength on the max versus your strength on reps might be different. So maybe he just maximally has a higher squat, but maybe if you guys were to put like 315 or 405 on the bar, you might be able to rep out more than him.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. We didn't try it.
Yeah.
And with my hip, the way it was, my quadratus lumborum, I keep saying my hip because it's like in the vicinity that it is. But my quadratus lumborum, I was so worried that it was gonna act up on me because, all right. So Thursday when I came in, my flight was super long. You know, my flight was easy, but it was a super long day. I didn't get to go to the hotel till like 2 o'clock. So I literally got up at 4 a.m. because my flight was super early. I got to the airport in Florida at like 8, 9 o'clock. So I just literally sat at the airport from 9 to like 2, just sitting. So I've been sitting essentially since 4:30 in the morning. So I was like, oh. And of course, you wake up in the morning the next day, you feel so tight. I'm like, oh my God. So of course, I did mobilization work and blah, blah, blah. But still, you know. So I was so worried that I was like, oh God, this is going to cramp up. This is going to cramp up. But thank God it didn't. And I ended up living. But I was happy it was cool. Like I said, it was cool to watch, to, you know, learn those little things like that with the squat and stuff. So that was cool. But
so I don't know what you have on tap next, but I think this would be a good time to go into if you learned anything about the belt, because I asked you this.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I asked you this when you were there. I actually was having trouble with my cell phone while Anthony was there, so we weren't texting too much back and forth. But when I did get in touch with him, I said, ask somebody there, because you have Lane, you have Zordos, you have a bunch of guys there. Ask them what they think about the belt, because I have me and Anthony have debates on this all the time about if he should or should not wear a belt. In my opinion, he should, but I'm really curious to hear what he learned from them.
So I got two answers. Mm-hmm. So Lane Norton told me to wear a belt. He told me to wear a belt. Mm-hmm. He said, don't crank it down so tight, because then you'll be able to press against it. Matt Gary, who also is he's not, I don't know if he's a world record holder in powerlifting, but he's a head judge for USAPL. He teaches the coaching certification through USAPL. He's a national level judge. So I think he like judges the world and stuff like that. And he has like a whole team that he coaches. So this guy's the best powerlifting guru that there is. He told me, if you feel like the belt gets in the way, which is 100% what I feel, he said, don't use it. Because he feels the same way. He feels like the belt gets in the way. So I got two answers. So again, I guess it always is going to boil down to personal preference. I do feel like it gets in the way. I do see some benefit from it now, because after speaking to these guys, not only do you brace your core, and when we say core, we think of our abdominals. You know, we think of our lower back. That's what we say core. But we also have the muscles of our obliques. Now, your quadratus lumborum, which is the muscle that I hurt, is part of that core, quote unquote. So the belt also stabilizes those muscles. So could my injury have been prevented if I wore a belt? I don't know. It's tough to say, but it's something to think about, you know? So that, like, I've been thinking about it. I don't think I'm going to use it still, because I just feel like it does get in the way for me. Can it have benefit? I'm not saying that it wouldn't. I'm
curious if his answer was, it feels like it's in the way, then don't use it. But I'm curious if you were to ask him, okay, but if I'm going for a max attempt in a meet, he would lift in a meet without
a belt either. And there's a lot of guys who have.
Very few people do that, though. Most people will wear a belt because, I mean, at least for me, I know. Maybe it's you could say it's psychological and it's not, but when I do train with my belt on, I am able to lift heavier weights. So if I'm going for a max attempt, I definitely want to put it on. But you know, I've seen you lift weights with the belt and not wearing the belt, and it looks like the weights are still the same. They're moving at the same speed. They don't look any heavier or lighter. For myself, when I do put it on, the weights do get a little bit easier to move when they're heavy. So, you know, everybody's different. You probably have a stronger core than me. I mean, I'm sure you do, considering you lift more than me. But it's definitely not as weak of a link for you, which is probably why you get away with not using the belt.
I just think if you know, either way, if you're not using a belt and you want to use a belt, you have to take time and learn how to use it. It's just like anything else. You can't just slap it on and say, okay, I'm going to try for a max attempt today. If you're going to use a belt, you have to use it for every lift. Like if I really wanted to use a belt, I'd have to buy it. 1, 2, I have to, because those things can be pricey.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I mean, I agree 100% with that, because you have to use it as a tool. You can't just slap it on for your heaviest set. I mean, you have to do sets with it so that you can, you know, basically what you want to do when you're using a belt, if you're using it to help you lift more and stabilize your core, is you want to do a Valsalva maneuver, and you know, you basically want to, you know, get as much air into your stomach as possible so you can push against the belt, and that's a technique. You know, if you're just putting the belt on and doing the squat, you're not getting anything out of it. So you have to practice doing that over and over again.
Yeah. And you would have to do that for an extended period of time. Like I said, I would have to use a belt for a good at least 4 to 6 weeks before my meet, before even attempting to do that. I'd have to literally put it on in the beginning of a block and use it every single time along the way. I don't know. I'm not doing that in the future, like with anytime soon. Maybe after the next meet, I might, just to see what would happen. But I don't know. I feel comfortable without it. So that was the answer to that. So then after the first day, which was, like I said, was squats, the next half of the day was lecture. Literally, we went back to the hotel room, showered, ate, and left. It was all day. It wasn't literally on my toes the entire day, because it was just, they keep you busy. It was definitely kept me busy the whole weekend. Like, it was not 1 minute of downtime, which was cool because, you know, obviously you pay really good money to go to something like this, and just to be around all those people, and you know, it was cool. The more time you're around these people, obviously the closer you get to them and the more you actually learn. Like and then we got in they rented cars. We got in a car, and like Lane rented like vans. So we got in the van, and then they drove us over to the college, and then we sat for lectures for the whole rest of the day until like 8:30 at night. So I think that was like from 1 o'clock. So yeah, because we got there in the morning. Yeah, around 1 o'clock, 1 to 8. So it was like 7 hours, a lot of all lectures, but it was really cool. It wasn't like school at all. I thought it was going to be like a little bit like school. It wasn't at all. So one of the trips, I rode in Mike Zordos' personal car. So I got to speak to him like more in depth on the stuff that he taught during the class, which I'll get into in a minute. But so the first day, there was a whole list of all these different lectures from all these different people. So I'll kind of just give you the gist of some of the things that I learned. So actually, Matt Gary, who's a PhD candidate, he works at UFC, which is the University of Florida. He did some research on fat burners, and we had made a video for Jack TV about fat burners. What we think we should do with a fat burner.
Yes, how to use a fat burner.
Yeah, and we literally took the fat burner and threw it in the garbage. That was a pun on it. It's basically saying that fat burners don't work. But Matt Gary actually, he did a whole research project on fat burners. A company paid, I'm not going to say which company, the company paid to test if the product actually works, if it actually raises your metabolism. So what he did was he obviously got a whole bunch of people. He split them up into 2 groups. He gave them all the same workout program, and he would measure certain markers, you know, throughout the day. I think it was like the marker was before. I don't remember all this off my head, and I don't have the slides to go over and do this with you because they didn't send it to us yet. But so basically, what he did was he separated in 2 groups: a placebo group and a group that received the fat burner. And the bottom line was the fat burner group actually showed a raised metabolism and a much greater fat loss using the fat burner. Now, the key here is, you know, you say, "Oh, fine and dandy," but what were they eating? The key here is that the whole purpose of this was to check if the fat burners work. So they actually wanted everyone in a surplus.
Interesting. I was going to ask if they were dieting. So they had everybody
so
in a
people
surplus.
were in a surplus. So the group that was actually taking the fat burner lost around, I forget how long the study was. I want to say it was about 4 weeks. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But the group, so in 4 weeks, the group that was given the fat burner actually lost around 2 pounds of body fat. And I forget how much percentage of total, weight.
So they took this in a surplus, but also still burnt body fat.
Yep.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Do you know how high the surplus was?
They didn't say. It wasn't all it had to be was they had to be eating in excess of whatever calories. So it didn't say exactly.
Interesting.
And obviously when you have a group like that, it's an average.
Right. I mean, either way, if they're in a surplus and they're burning body fat, then something's definitely going on.
Yeah. So that was cool that the supplement company actually paid for that type of research. And Matt Gary does really, really cool research. He showed us like everything that he used for the study. He also talked about other studies that he did. Again, I don't have his slides in front of me, and I was bombarded with so much information that I remember bits and pieces of it. And as I speak, I remember more and more. But to visualize all the other research topics that he talked about, it'd be impossible for me right now. But that was the one that really, really stuck out to me because I was like, wow, I was really mind blown because we thought that was junk before.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what it is? It depends on a lot of things. People think that if they just take a fat burner, that it's just going to burn fat. And, the evidence from the study is showing that, if you are in the right surplus, taking the right dosage, I don't know what they had these people taking, they were able to burn fat. But
the serving of the supplement.
Yeah.
So whatever the supplement recommended is what they took.
I mean, the biggest thing with me, the reason we made that video, as it was a joke anyway, but the reason we made that video is because people just assume, okay, I want to burn fat, so if you just take a fat burner. You can't make a transformation just from a fat burner.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it because I was going to say you could still lose, even if you're eating, you could still lose according to that study.
Right, exactly. So, you don't, if your goal is to burn fat, just taking a fat burner is not going to do that. But there's some evidence to show, according to the study, that if you do take a fat burner, it is going to help you burn fat. So,
yeah, you're not going to make a New York Muscle Radio transformation.
No, and those don't require fat burners. Which is the best part,
Imagine if we added in a fat burner.
I'd be interested to see what would happen. We have to get
we have to do our own research.
Yeah. We have to get somebody want to donate some fat burners for us.
Yeah, if any supplement companies are listening to this, if you want to send us a couple of bottles of fat burner that we could send out to some of our clients and do our own research study here, and obviously this wouldn't be anything crazy, but it would just be a good marker to see what happens. We can give a group of people a placebo, and we can give a group of people the actual supplement and see what happens. I'd be down for that and see what happens. So if someone wants to sponsor that study,
if you want to use me as the research subject, I'll take either the fat burner or the placebo, and Anthony will take the other one.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. You're very paranoid with shit like that, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
This is the only kid I know who reads the labels like 4 times.
You never know, man. I told you one time I was taking 15 grams of creatine thinking I was taking 3.
That was way back in the day.
Way back. No, way back.
So, all right. Then the other thing that I remember too that really stuck out was so remember Dom from bodybuilding.com, DPD, I think it was like 155, something like that.
Yes.
Dom D Agostino.
Yes, I remember that name. Yes.
Well, I met him in person. He's huge in real life.
Uh-huh.
And according to Lane, which we spoke about this in the car on the way back, the guy doesn't have any carbs. He's all keto. I'll explain why in a minute, but he's all keto, 100% keto. He's the only guy I know who could be 100% keto, go into the gym, sling around 100-pound dumbbells, do like dumbbell flies with 100-pound dumbbells, and then deadlift 700 and walk out like it was nothing. Keto.
And he does that all year round?
All year round, I believe. I didn't talk to him in depth about it. He's very soft-spoken, believe it or not.
Yeah, he's got the Mike Tyson thing going on.
Yeah, surprisingly. Yeah. But I actually want to get him on the podcast, so don't make fun of him before we get him on.
No, I'm not making fun of him. Guy fucking does 700-pound deadlifts. I'm not going to make fun of him.
With ease. But anyway, his research was on ketogenic diets for cancer prevention and seizure prevention. And it was cool. Like, he talked about how this all came about. And the reason why I bring this up is because we always said that keto diets are a waste, but remember, everything is in context. If you want to make the best transformation possible, that might be the best. But if you have a scenario going on, so basically, what happened was the reason how this all came about with keto diets was because the Navy, not the Navy, the Navy SEALs. So those guys are fucking badass. They spring out at you, you know, they're nuts. It's fucking the Navy SEALs. So one of the things they do was they swim to you under, like they scuba dive. They scuba dive up to their enemy and they pop out of the water and get you, right? And you've seen that, I'm sure, in the movies. If you ever seen Men in Black, they're in the water. I mean, not Men in Black, Bad Boys.
Bad Boys, yep.
Yeah. So they're in the water, whatever. But so basically what happens is when they're in the water and if you're in the scuba gear, when you exhale, there'll be bubbles. And if you're in the Navy, you're a Navy SEAL, you can't have bubbles because then your target will know that you're there. So they have to have a different type of, I guess, facial thing, whatever, that doesn't exhale those bubbles. Because if no bubbles, no one knows you're there. So what was happening was when they were putting on these different, whatever, masks or whatever it was inducing seizures to the Navy SEALs. So they were looking for ways to prevent that. So they figured out that if they can prevent it with being in a state of ketosis.
Interesting.
So, so when you're in a state of ketosis, it prevents the seizures. Now, you may be asking, well, how come they didn't give him anti-seizure medicines? I'm totally probably butchering this, by the way. So if anyone's listening to this and I'm butchering it, you know, I'm sorry. But I'm doing this all off memory, and it was a lot that was going on that day. But
I'm sure you got the take home from it, though.
Yeah, which I'm getting to. I'm just going to have to explain the backstory. I feel like you when I'm telling a story. But anyway, I forgot I lost my train of thought. How come they don't give him anti-seizure medicine is because the anti-seizure medicine is like, you know when you take drugs and you're not supposed to operate heavy machinery?
Yeah, so the anti-seizure. Yeah, I got you.
So
okay.
It's like a catch-22 that they won't have a seizure, but they won't be able to perform.
Right.
So they figured out that if you put them in a state of ketosis, that you won't have those seizures. It reduces it by X amount. So Dom basically talked about the different ways to induce ketosis. So there's basically supplements. He mentioned like coconut oil and MCT oil to help put your body in a state of ketosis, even with a little bit of carbohydrates. And then he mentioned some of the research supplements that he's been trying that put you in a state of ketosis, a state of being starved for like 60 days or something like that. But these keto diets that they're talking about have also been shown to prevent cancer, certain type of cancer growth. So that was really, really cool to hear that. Obviously, basically, cancer runs off glucose.
Right.
So if you take glucose out of the equation, you know that the cancer cells can't grow. And when they talk about keto, they're talking about real keto, not like Atkins keto.
That's what I was going to ask.
It's 70% fat.
Right,
it's like 10% protein, something like that.
Right, because I want to mention, too, I mean, I'm sure they covered this, too, when they were speaking about that. See, bodybuilders have a very, very flawed system of using a ketogenic diet, because if you're eating 1.5 grams or 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight with no carbs, you're really not on a ketogenic diet, because you're providing your body with so much protein that it's basically just having an inefficient way to convert that protein into glucose. So you're not really putting yourself in a strict ketogenic diet, because you need to have a higher fat content to make your body be in a real ketosis state. So
yeah, exactly. So but that was a really cool takeaway. And like I said, the reason why I bring that up was because we mentioned that we hated keto diets, but there is actually a place for them. And
well, I hate keto diets for people trying to get in contest shape.
Yeah, obviously. If you're trying to save yourself from cancer, this may be the
right.
better
I definitely. I mean, I agree on that too. You know, if there's cancer in somebody's body, one of the best things you could do nutrition wise is take the glucose out of the equation, because you basically starve off the cancer cells. That's what it feeds on.
What they actually did, and I'm gonna totally butcher this because I don't remember the exact details of it, but what they did was they had someone in a ketose state for a certain amount of days, and now that'll normally kill someone at ketosis state. Basically what happens when they gave them in a ketosis state was they basically just had low blood sugar. So it's crazy the effect of ketones,
So
Hello?
Yeah, no, so sorry, the audio got cut off a little bit. So you said that somebody was in a state of ketosis and they just had low blood sugar level.
Yeah, so basically they put someone in, I'll repeat the whole story. They put someone in a state of ketosis for 60 days.
Okay, 60
so
days.
A deep state of ketosis.
Right.
And they injected them with 20 IUs of insulin.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't
20
hear that
IUs
part.
of insulin will kill you if you're not
Right.
in a state of ketosis. The big ketosis basically made them feel like they had low blood sugar. So
Gotcha.
that's just goes to show you how strong ketones are when there's no insulin present in the diet.
Right. And that's another interesting thing too, because a lot of bodybuilders who do use a ketogenic diet, a lot of them are enhanced bodybuilders who do mess around with insulin too. And a ketogenic diet with insulin and without insulin are two different things completely. So you have people saying, oh, ketogenic diets are the best way to do it, but they're also injecting insulin. There's a big difference there.
Yeah. They also talked about diabetes and ketos and a keto type diet. They basically showed a different case study of someone who came in, a typical normal diabetic who was type 1, who is insulin dependent, who uses the monitor. My dad is a type 1, for those of you that may not know. And it's common. What the case study they showed, it was like basically a fluctuation in blood glucose levels. It's 300, down 50, 100, 120. The average resting was like 120, which is totally normal for someone who has diabetes on an insulin pump. They did was they gave him more of a modified keto type diet, and it brought their levels down so much they didn't have those rapid spikes. So again, a keto diet may work for someone who has diabetes. So, and there was someone there who actually had diabetes. I don't remember his name off my head, but he did the same type of diet for himself, and he said that he had a lot less spikes in that blood sugar level. So if anyone's listening to that who may be diabetic, maybe that's something that you look into as far as research goes. Maybe that's something that could help you prevent those swings in insulin. So, I mean, that was cool. That's why I brought that up. I saw keto. I was like, oh, I got to pay attention to this.
Yeah, I mean, there's nutrition for bodybuilding and body composition is not the same as nutrition for health purposes all the time. You can definitely,
it's totally different.
You can definitely mix them together, but if your goal is strictly one or the other, you're probably going to go about it in a little bit of a different way.
Mm-hmm. So then we had again, we had so many different listeners, so I'm just thinking off my head. Brian Whitaker came there on, who I actually got to hang out with most of the weekend too. He's a really cool guy. We interviewed him on the podcast. Oh man, I should have known what number, but I don't remember off my head. But again, I'll link it in the show notes. So if you guys head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com, click on the show notes for 110, and you'll see Jason's episode there and Brian's. But Brian's a really cool guy in person too. I got to hang out with him. I pretty much made really good friends with him, Mike Zordos, Elaine, and Jason. It's pretty much the crew, and we hung out all weekend. But Brian actually was telling his story. We had him on the podcast, so I had inside information on this as well. We talked about basically his career of training, how it took him 10 years to basically win, and he kind of mapped it out with a timeline. It was really cool to see it in person, the timeline. But he actually told the story that I thought was really cool. The year before he lost, he came in second. I don't remember the guy's name off my head, the competitor that he lost to. But he said he remembered standing there on stage when he lost, and the guy who beat him didn't even look in his direction. He completely ignored him, like he was a real dick. So when Brian won, when Brian beat him, and Brian played the clip back on YouTube, like he actually played the clip of the actual what happens. As soon as they called Brian's name, he literally ran over to the competitor, the same guy who he finally beat, and he shook his hand and he gave him a hug, as if to say, I'm so much better than you. I actually gave you that respect that you didn't give me. It was a really cool story that he actually told that. And it was funny because the guy who he beat, again, I wish I knew his name. The guy outsized Brian, but Brian just beat him hands down in posing all around. He made him, I think he was 20 pounds heavier than Brian, and Brian made him look small. And certain back poses made him look small. It was crazy. It was awesome to watch. I gotta see if I can find that YouTube clip and put it in here. It was really cool.
Brian's a really cool competitor just because of the fact that he's not a huge guy, but he's so symmetrical and he's so detailed with everything that he really takes advantage of every aspect of bodybuilding. You have so many guys that they're either just big or they're just lean. And Brian's one of those guys that just kind of he takes advantage of everything. And as far as symmetry goes, he has that down,
And it's funny because he talked about the podcast that we had him on, no excuses. He talked about his injury that he had and going into it. I found out so much more about him. Basically what he does is he takes his photos from last year to this year, tries to take them in the same light. He kind of, I don't know how he does this, but he overlaps the pictures, so he puts them on top of each other.
Okay.
And he could physically see if a muscle grew, if something didn't grow, and what he needs to change. And he does this throughout the course of the year, so he could see. After a couple weeks, he'll put the pictures on top of each other and he'll say, okay, my calves came up a little bit, my quads came up a little bit. So when he used Mike Zordos, because he mentioned that in a podcast that we did with him, he put the pictures over and his legs grew significantly. So it was really cool to hear him say that, and the amount of detail that he actually put into winning. He said what he would do was on the nights that he couldn't sleep, As you know, when you contest prep, you usually don't sleep well. On the nights that he couldn't sleep, what he would do was he would go back and he would rewatch how he lost the last time and figure out what he needed to change. You know, it was just really cool to hear, like, you know, someone of that caliber talk about how detailed he was in beating him. It was almost like something you hear out of something Arnold would have said, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, he's very detailed and neurotic, you know? I mean, especially to do something like that. Yeah, I mean, in a good way, you know, because obviously it helped him win. But, you know, taking pictures and overlapping them like that, it's crazy to do that over and over again, especially for a natural bodybuilder, because the rate of muscle growth is so slow that you're looking at something, you're just splitting hairs at that point, you know? And then, hey, I mean, consistency is always what's going to get you there. And I think that him doing it like that, it's just he's paying attention to the smallest details. And at his level, that's what he has to do to win, you know?
Dude, but he rattled everything off. Like, he knew every detail of everything from the first contest he did. He beat... You remember Jim Cordova?
Yeah.
Jim Cordova was a huge natural bodybuilder.
Huge
guy. Really great body, you know, no homo.
Yeah.
But he beat him. And he said, like, he beat me in 2007. Like, he rattled off all these people that he beat. He's like, I beat him there. I beat him here. I beat him here. He said he was the only competitor to ever go back and beat every single person who beat him. Something like that. It was crazy. It was like the amount of detail. He knew every detail of his story. That's like you going back to your contest history and rattling everything off. I mean, obviously, this is the best in the world that we're talking about. So, obviously, it's a little limited. But he knew everything about every other competitor other than himself. I mean, I know we talk about bettering yourself, but he knew his competition, and he knew what he had to do to be better than them. I think that'll apply to anything in your life.
Yeah, that's what you call tunnel vision, man. And I've said it before about Brian, that he's so. I've mentioned this to a few people too. I even asked Lane about him. He's just so on top of everything, year after year, competing. You know, like the second the contest is over, it's off season, but it's not. Yeah, but it's not off season where it's slacking. It's growing season.
It's funny because he mentioned that as soon as he's done with the contest, that first night, he takes it. Literally, he showed us a picture of it. It was on a napkin of all the things he needed to improve, and he kept it with him like his entire prep. It was crazy. It was crazy to like really hear that. It was like almost motivating. I want to compare his talk to like a Rocky speech almost, the way he was talking. And it was really cool because especially when he was talking about how when he won and he went over to the competitor and like not rubbed in his face, but like whatever, showed him that he was the better man. He got so fired up. It like I know it got everyone else fired up too, but it got me fired up. I was like, wow, that's like a really cool story, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing better than coming back and winning after you lose, you know?
Yeah. So, but that was Brian. And I learned so much more about, you know, daily undulating periodization. There'd be too much to go into, but I got Mike Zordos coming on the podcast sometime soon. So I'll save the DUP for him. I'll let him explain what the DUP is.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of Mike's seminars on DUP, and man, I don't know anybody who could explain it the way he can. And I remember watching one of them and just having so many questions I wish I could ask him. So it's awesome that we're going to get him on.
Like, it's funny because it's one thing when you listen to these guys, and then I lifted with all of them. Like, I was deadlifting with Mike Zordos. Like,
yeah, it's a lot different. It's like anything else in life. It's a lot different. It's like if you were to read about something in a book, you're not an expert on it, so you actually go experience it. So if you read about daily undulating periodization and you read about how to deadlift, then you get Zordos there to show you. You know, there's a big difference. You know,
the one thing that I noticed about all these guys, about Lane, about him, Mike Zordos, Matt Gary, what they do is repeatable. You know, they always talk about being repeatable. You know, making sure everything is the same every single time you do it. So when they bench press, literally the first set, the last set, the setup is the same. You wouldn't even be able to tell, you know, no matter how tired I am, the setup is the same. The setup is the same. I don't even think they realize they're doing it. And I caught this because I was watching that. I wanted to see how each one of them set up. And for every lift, it didn't matter if it was 1 plate on the bar or 5 plates on the bar, the same setup. And I think that's a key that you need to know when you're training, is you have to make sure you're able to execute everything the same every time, because that's what's going to keep things easier to kind of catalog almost, you know?
Yeah, well, when you train your body to do the same thing over and over again, then it just becomes natural. You know, it's like that saying, you know, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So, you know, however you're practicing it over and over again, that's how you're going to do it naturally.
Yeah, so that was one cool thing that I picked up from everybody too. But, you know, you mentioned practicing it, and this was where I was mind Like it just exploded.
Uh,
So Matt Gary talked, and his whole talk was on deadlifts. Now, like I mentioned earlier in this podcast, deadlifts is one of those lifts. My goal is to get a 600-pound deadlift right now. That's my goal. I want a 600-pound deadlift. And it seems like every time I get close, something happens and I have to take steps back. So I was really focused on this lift, this speech, lecture, whatever you want to call it. I was really excited because I was curious what the best in the world had to say on it. This guy's judged, the best people in the world. He's seen every type of person deadlifting. And it was cool. Actually, in his lecture, he showed like different people deadlifting, how they deadlifted, when someone uses sumo versus when they don't. He showed like a powerlifter who had, he broke a record. I think he did like, I don't remember off my head, but he was like somewhere in the 600 pounds and the guy weighed like 130 pounds. But the guy had a scoliosis of his back. So his back was shaped like an S. Mm-hmm. So that he showed us like his stance, his feet were what they call frogged. So his heels were basically touching while he deadlifted, and that allowed him to keep the bar short. Now, something that you listeners can listen on this podcast, because as soon as I heard this, everyone in the room did it. So I'm going to tell you guys, and you could do the same thing. So big guy, stand up straight in your chair. I'm going to use you as an example. So here, stand up straight in your chair. Everybody who's listening, stand up nice and straight right now. Now let your arm, any arm, or both, whatever, let your arm hang at your side. Is your arm hanging to your side? But
it's hanging.
Relax,
And
relax.
this is
Don't
okay
slouch.
if I'm sitting?
Yeah, it's fine because it doesn't matter. Now, point to your belly button with one hand.
Okay.
Now draw a line from your belly button over to your arm.
To the arm that's pointing?
Yeah. So put your finger on your belly button and drive over to the other arm. Not the one that's using...
Okay.
Pointing. Now, the best deadlifters in the world have the crook of their arm is below their belly button.
Yeah, mine is way above.
Yeah, mine too.
Mine is way above.
So there may be some of you that are listening to this that when they do that, maybe they're hitting their bicep. You're in the ideal leverage to deadlift. For someone with a higher height like that, they recommend doing a sumo. But again, everyone's built differently, so it's tough to say. But that's like a general rule. So you could tell if someone's a good deadlifter if you do that little test and see where they fall.
Right. Yeah, I mean, generally, definitely, if you have a short torso and long arms, you're definitely going to be built to do more deadlifting. But just doing that little thing, I'm way off.
Yeah, me too. Don't feel bad.
But I already knew I wasn't built to be a world-class deadlifter, that's for sure. My numbers clearly represent that.
Doesn't mean you can't be good at deadlifts. All that means is that you just got to keep working at it. That's all.
Right. But I think that's also why my technique is very different from traditional, because I just don't have a structure that really works well with a regular conventional or a traditional sumo deadlift,
Yeah, I agree. Same here. So now here's, like I said, I'm getting into the part where my mind was blown. All right, this is really eye-opening stuff for me. So basically what Matt said was, I'm going to summarize this as short as possible to make it as easy as possible. I'm putting this in layman's terms. So basically what he said was, when you're deadlifting, you're doing a max set of 1. So when you're in the gym, there's no reason to do anything more than 1 rep if your goal is powerlifting. Okay? So now you're saying, okay, so I'm just going to do singles. So how am I going to get my volume in? So basically what he recommended was, so let's say your program said 3 sets of 8 on deadlifts. That would be a horrible day, right? Of deadlifts. 3 sets of 8. That's horrible.
Yeah, of course.
Horrible.
I did that last week.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, it is horrible.
So basically, you're doing 24 reps. So what Matt says to do is, instead of doing 3 sets of 8, just take 24 reps, which is the total reps that you're going to be doing at that weight, and just perform 24 singles. Mm-hmm. Now, he gave us a chart and also said, like, based on how much weight, a percentage of weight it is towards your 1 rep max, this is the amount of time that you should be resting while doing it. But if you do 24 singles, that's going to carry over so much more to your deadlift than doing 3 sets of 8. He said, because you're going to get tired and that your form's going to break, and that's not good. Mm-hmm. You may quit the lift before you have to because you're gassed.
Right.
So that's not really practicing your skill. And obviously, if you're a powerlifter, your skill is to lift the weight for 1 rep.
Right. And would that be the same weight as you would do
volume.
with
Yeah. Take your 3 sets of 8, whatever.
So your singles would be very light.
But you're still doing the same amount of work. Mm-hmm. But you're practicing that over time. So let's just say it was with, 70% of your 1 rep max is what you're using for the 3 sets of 8. Now you could do that rather quickly, but at the end of the day, instead of doing 3 sets of 8, you do 1 set you do 24 sets of one, but you practice your skill 24 times versus only practicing it, 8 times, whatever, 3 times 8. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely coming down to, specificity, especially with the training, the skill. Obviously, that would make much more sense, if powerlifting is your main goal.
But dude, I really like that, and my mind was really blown. I mean, it's something so simple, but just the takeaway from that, I think, is going to carry over a lot to my deadlift, and hopefully anyone listening to this, it'll carry over a lot to their deadlift as well. Because literally, you're just taking your same training and just dispersing it. So again, if you're doing 4x4, that's 16 total reps. You're just doing 16 reps on deadlift day. So the good thing about it is it doesn't matter how tired you get. You could take a little bit of rest. You could take a lot of rest. If you're in a rush, you could do them quick. Obviously fatigue is going to set in there, but you're able to be a little more flexible. But like he said, you're practicing your skill, 16 times as opposed to only 4.
Right.
Because if you're doing 4 sets of 4, if you're doing 4 sets of 4, you only get to practice it 4 times versus practicing it 16.
It is true if you think about it, because if you're like you said, if your goal is powerlifting and you're competing in a 1 rep max, then you want to practice your skill as much as possible. So
now, wait, I asked Lane. This is the cool thing about being there, because I was literally surrounded by these guys all day. Like, I hung out with Lane, I drank with Lane, I made jokes to Lane, I made fun of Lane, he made fun of me. So like, it was a cool weekend. But I asked him, I said, okay, so based on what Matt said, do you think that you would get more growth doing 4 sets of 4 or still the 16 reps? He said, well, the volume is going to be the same, so it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're increasing the volume. And he said, I even beg to differ, but doing the 1 rep at a time, you're going to be able eventually to add on more weight and more volume faster doing it that way. And I couldn't agree more.
I definitely agree with that to some degree, but I'm curious if they, took into account anything else, like, muscle fatigue, metabolic stress, stuff like that, which will play a role in muscle growth. Obviously, the volume is the most important factor.
Yeah, your volume, what I've compared volume to, and I spoke to Mike Zordos about this, is calories for your diet. So obviously, if you're consuming excess amount of calories, you're going to gain weight. If you're under consuming calories, you're going to lose weight. So volume, as far as training goes, is going to stimulate if you're going to gain muscle or if you're not going to gain muscle. So all that matters is that volume number. I mean, there's no fancy way to go about it. And if you're doing sets of 1, you're going to get better at doing sets of 1, but the volume is going to be overall the same. I would say you could probably do a mix of both. I mean, if I'm just going to play devil's advocate with you, but me personally, I'd rather do 16 sets of 1.
Oh, I'd rather do that too.
I'd rather do that than do 4 sets of 4. That's annoying.
Of course.
And you know what it is? I do think, and I agree with Lane, I do think doing the sets of 1 is safer. No matter what. I think it's definitely a lot safer.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially on the deadlift. I generally,
because there's
only
no way.
put my back in
Matt also said, if you're going to do multiple sets of deadlifts, so multiple reps of deadlifts, you need to take a 4-second break in between every rep. He said, because when you do touch and go, you're doing 0 because you're just getting a reflex off the floor. And it makes sense because you're literally bouncing the weight off the floor.
Yeah.
So, and if you stop for under 4 seconds, you're still getting a reflex there. There's still a reflex in the bar. So he recommended, if you're going to do that, step away from the bar for 4 seconds. So do your set, do your rep, put it down, walk away, and then walk back up and do it again. That's what he recommended if you're going to do multiple reps.
Yeah, and
I've had you do that before. I've had you totally reset.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, when I do completely reset, my form is always better each rep. Even if it's not a 4-second reset, even if it's instant, I'll stand back up, then get back down. When I pull from that initial starting point over and over again, my reps are always cleaner.
Yeah, that's why I think doing the sets of 1, as we know, volume is the driver. So if your volume is the same, doing the sets of 1, I think is going to be safer in the long run. And yeah, as long as you don't rush, I think you'll be fine.
Well, I know Zordos was a proponent of that too, as well, right?
Well, actually, fun fact, Matt Gary taught Zordos.
Oh, okay. Because I originally heard that from Zordos. He was a big advocate of only doing singles with deadlifts. So
and that won't. I've asked this question too, so I know someone who's listening to this is saying, "Oh, what if I'm powerlifter? What about if I can do that for bench or squats?" The reason why you can't do that for bench or squats is because you're utilizing both the eccentric and the concentric portion of the exercise even if you're doing a powerlifting meet. So you're eccentrically bringing the weight down and you're concentrically pushing it up. Deadlift, you're just picking it up.
Right.
There's no eccentric form of the motion of the movement. So it's just a concentric that you're using. So it's not going to work with anything else.
What if you do it Skip LaCour style with a 2-second negative? Max OT style.
I don't know, man. I've done that in the past and I haven't gotten anything out of it. So I don't know. I'm going to try this and see.
I love Skip.
Yeah, it's funny because like since that really blew my mind and I read that, I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. I've done it since then, and I think I won't do deadlifts any other way because I really think that's more practical to what I want to achieve right now. And I really think, like I said, it's going to keep you safer in the long run, I think. And I think as long as the volume's there, you're going to build the same amount of muscle. And you can make it as hard as you want to make it based on how much rest you want to take in between.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes down to volume. Like you said, it's calories in versus calories out. Pretty much the same thing with volume. There's other factors that will play a role, but obviously the most important thing is going to be volume.
Honestly, based on what I heard, I really don't even care if doing 4 sets of 4 is going to lead to maybe 1% more muscle growth. To me, I'd rather do the 16 reps one at a time. I really do feel like, honestly, that's going to keep me working better in the long term versus, just getting the most out of it in the short term. Because, listen, we've all done deadlifts before, multiple reps, multiple sets. Your back is always going to be hurting. Your hip is always going to be hurting. You're always going to have something that's going to nag you. And I'm not saying that doing singles is going to prevent that, but, think about it. The tension on your lower back is going to be a lot less. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the most risky reps on a deadlift are the most painful looking reps are generally the ones where you're very fatigued.
And think about it. What's the hardest rep of any deadlift? Of a set of deadlifts, what's the hardest rep?
The last one.
Wrong. The first one. The first one is always the hardest.
No. Yes, yeah. The first one to pull it initially, yeah, absolutely. The first one's always going to move the slowest. Then the next, yes, absolutely.
Exactly. And I've always said that, it's once I get the bar moving, it's good. Like I could probably I can AMRAP anything. I can AMRAP anything. As long as I get it off the floor, I can AMRAP it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the first rep's always gonna be the hardest, just to get it moving.
So if you're doing that hardest rep over and over and over, you can argue that you may gain more muscle doing that because that's the hardest rep. That's a true deadlift.
I guess we'll have to put this to the test and find out exactly what the truth is.
Yeah. Well, if you guys listen to this and you guys think, I kind of forgot I was recording a podcast here, but if you guys try this out and let us know, just hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/New York Muscle Radio, and let us know. All right. Well, that's it. That's all the stuff I got for today, big guy.
Man, I'm sure you got some.
Do you have any questions for me?
Man, I have a ton, but I'm probably going to have to ask you after the podcast. We have to talk about the stuff that's not allowed on the podcast.
What you want to know if there's any girls there, right?
Yeah, tell me all the juicy details, man. What did I miss out on?
Dude, there was a girl there. Her name was Sadie. My dog's
Oh, really?
name.
Did you tell her that?
No, I didn't. I almost did. But every time I heard her name called, I'm like, oh, my dog's here. It's just funny, because Sadie's such a unique name.
Yeah,
and I never heard that name before. So every time I heard Sadie, I'm like, oh. And there was a girl. I'm like, oh, you have the same name as my dog. Like I said it in my head. I would have told her that to her face, but I didn't want to. How
many people went to this event?
There was only. The good thing about it was they keep it small, so it stays very, very individual. I think there was like 20.
And it was the age group mostly teens, 20s?
No, it was probably about in your 25 and up.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
There was a guy from Denmark there, which was cool.
Yeah, I'm sure some people come from all over the world just to go to
Shout
one of those things.
Shout out to him, Razman. That was his name, Razman. From Denmark. He's a chiropractor from Denmark, 40 years old. And he, it's cool. You sit and meet with all these people and you talk about, they talk about their competitions and where they compete. So it was really, really cool. Do you have any questions that we can answer on air here?
Man, I have so much. I mean, I'm curious more about what you learned as far as. So was it mostly training or nutrition? It seems like it was more training.
Definitely mostly training.
Yeah, that's interesting that it was more training because a lot of people push the nutrition aspect of bodybuilding. And me and you have spoke about this a lot on the podcast, that nutrition, once you get it down, it's pretty basic. And then from there, the only thing that kind of pushes you beyond that is if your training is optimal. And I guess they were stressing that.
Remember that old question, would you rather have a master nutritionist or a master trainer?
No.
Remember that? You never read that question? Flex Magazine was just to put that question out there. But
yeah.
So if you could pick a guru master nutritionist or a guru trainer, who would you pick? Like someone to do your programming or someone to do your nutrition? What would you pick?
Me personally, I would pick the trainer.
now.
Yeah, now, yeah.
5 years ago, what would you have picked?
Oh, definitely a nutritionist, yeah.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
always felt the same way because I was always like, there's something I'm not getting right with the nutrition. Meanwhile, this whole time it was probably my training.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that since, like I said, since I started changing the way I'm training the last year or so, I've been making more progress in the last year than I have the last 3 or 4 years. You know,
Yeah.
I can manipulate my body through diet very easily because I have it down pat. You know, training, once you get really into the advanced stages, it has to become completely different. And it's all these little things that you're learning, even like doing singles with deadlifts. And, you know, you were talking a little bit more about daily undulating periodization, which kind of, it's something that you're eventually going to need to move into way past the, you know, the intermediate stage. You can't just keep trying to put weight on the bar anymore. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Well, all right, big guy, if you got no more questions,
All right,
no more podcast.
let's take it out, man. This is Pete and Anthony, New York Muscle Radio, and we're out.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.